Welcome. Make yourself comfortable and allow the day to fade. Tonight's story is slow, quiet, and intentionally uneventful, designed to help your mind settle and your body relax deeply. You don't need to follow every word. Simply let the sound of the voice guide you as sleep arrives naturally and effortlessly. If these calm stories help you fall asleep faster and sleep more deeply, consider subscribing. New gentle sleep stories are added regularly, always created to help you rest. Now, take a slow breath in. And as you breathe out, allow your thoughts to soften. There is nothing to do, nowhere to go. Sleep can begin now. Settle yourself gently, as if you are stepping into a moment that asks nothing of you. There is no task to complete, no place you must go. This is simply a quiet arrival, a soft crossing into a world where numbers exist not to demand attention, but to rest peacefully on the page. Imagine the early United States in a time before speed became a habit. The land stretches wide and unhurried, and the air itself seems to move more slowly. In this world, counting is not an act of urgency. It is an act of observation. Numbers are not sharp or precise in a modern sense. Instead, they feel rounded, patient, and calm, as though they understand they have all the time they need. You might picture a small wooden desk near a window, sunlight resting gently across its surface. On the desk lies a ledger, thick, bound, and quiet. Its pages are slightly uneven, textured by hand and time. When opened, the paper does not snap or rustle loudly. It responds softly, almost politely, as if aware that the room values stillness. The numbers written there do not compete for attention. They sit neatly beside names and simple notes, content to exist without explanation. Each line represents a household, a place where life unfolded in ordinary ways. Nothing dramatic is recorded. No urgency is preserved. Only presence. Only the fact that someone was there, breathing the same air, living through days that passed one by one. As you linger in this imagined room, notice how quiet it is. Outside, the sounds of early America are gentle and distant, perhaps the faint creak of a wagon wheel far down a road, or the soft call of birds settling into trees. These sounds do not interrupt. They blend naturally into the calm, becoming part of a steady background rhythm. The act of counting people here feels more like listening than measuring. Someone moves slowly from place to place, not rushing, not intruding. They pause at each home, not to judge or evaluate, but simply to acknowledge. The questions are few and unremarkable. How many live here? How old they are? Simple facts, offered without tension. There is a kindness in this simplicity. Lives are not reduced by being counted, they are gently noticed. The numbers do not define anyone. They merely confirm existence. A quiet assurance that a life was seen, if only briefly, and then allowed to continue in peace. As you imagine this, your own breathing can begin to slow. There is no pressure here. No expectation. Just the steady, comforting idea that the world once moved at a pace that matched the human heartbeat. A pace where writing a number was not about efficiency, but about care. The ink used to record these details dries slowly. Nothing is rushed. The pen lifts between entries, allowing small pauses, moments where nothing happens at all. Those pauses matter. They give space for stillness, for reflection, for rest. Even the person doing the writing seems aware that quiet is part of the work. Outside the window, the day continues without urgency. Light shifts gradually across the floor. Shadows lengthen without drama. Time passes, but it does so gently, without announcing itself. This is a world where time does not press forward, it drifts. You may notice how soothing it feels to think of numbers this way. Not as deadlines or measurements, but as soft markers along a calm path. Each one a small stone placed carefully, saying only, "This was here. This mattered," quietly. There is comfort in knowing that history contains vast stretches of such unremarkable calm. That between moments of change and noise, there were long periods of simple living, simple recording, simple nights. Nights much like this one, where people settled into rest without wondering if they were doing enough or moving fast enough. As the imagined ledger closes, the room remains peaceful. Nothing needs to be resolved. Nothing needs to continue. The numbers remain where they are, patient and complete. They do not call out for interpretation. They simply rest. And you can rest too. Let your thoughts become less detailed now, like ink fading slightly on an old page. You do not need to hold on to every image. You can allow them to blur softly at the edges. The desk, the window, the quiet room, they can all drift gently into the background. What remains is a feeling rather than a picture. A sense of calm acknowledgement. Of being present without pressure. Of existing without explanation. As this chapter comes to a close, imagine stepping away from the ledger, leaving it exactly as it is. Nothing disturbed. Nothing unfinished. The world of numbers continues to rest quietly behind you. And as you move forward, slowly, effortlessly, you carry with you that same quiet ease, allowing your mind to soften, your body to relax, and your awareness to drift gently towards sleep. Allow your thoughts to continue drifting, as if they are moving across a wide landscape at an unhurried pace. There is no destination you need to reach. This is simply a gentle continuation, a calm unfolding into a time when a nation was counted slowly, with patience that matched the land itself. In the early days of the United States, distance was measured not in minutes, but in days. Roads were long and quiet, stretching through fields, forests, and open spaces where the sky felt larger than anything beneath it. Moving from one place to another took time, and that time was accepted without resistance. To count a nation like this meant moving at the pace of footsteps, of horses walking steadily, of boats gliding across calm water. There was no sense that counting needed to be completed quickly. The work followed the natural rhythm of daylight. When the sun rose, the day began. When it lowered toward the horizon, the work paused. Night was respected as a time for rest, not productivity. This rhythm shaped the way information was gathered, slowly, thoughtfully, and without strain. You might imagine someone traveling along a quiet path, carrying a small bundle of papers. Each page is blank at first, waiting patiently. There is no urgency in filling them. The pages seem to understand that they will be written on when the time is right. The journey itself is as important as the destination, filled with moments of silence and steady movement. As towns and settlements appear along the way, they do not arrive suddenly. They emerge gradually from the land, as if growing from it. A cluster of homes here, a few buildings there. Each place has its own pace, its own quiet routine. People are not startled by a visitor. They greet the moment calmly, continuing their day with gentle adjustments. The act of counting becomes part of the landscape, not an interruption. A few simple questions are asked. Answers are given without hurry. The exchange feels almost like conversation rather than record-keeping. There is time for pauses, for thought, for looking out across a field before responding. Numbers gathered in this way feel different. They are shaped by patience. They reflect lives lived in measured steps, not rushed minutes. Each number is earned through presence. Through walking, waiting, listening. Nothing is rushed because there is no reason to rush. As you imagine this slow movement across the land, notice how your own body responds. Shoulders soften. Breathing deepens. There is something reassuring about a process that unfolds without pressure. It reminds the mind that not everything needs to happen at once. The land itself seems to encourage this calm. Fields stretch wide, offering space rather than constraint. Forests stand quietly, their trees unbothered by the passing of time. Rivers move steadily, never hurrying, never stopping. Everything flows, but nothing pushes. In this setting, counting a nation becomes a series of small, gentle moments rather than a single overwhelming task. One household at a time. One name at a time. One number placed carefully on a page. Each step complete in itself, without needing to connect immediately to the next. There is comfort in knowing that this slow process allowed for human presence. People were seen not as data points, but as neighbors, even briefly. A shared moment at a doorway. A quiet exchange under open sky. These moments were not recorded in the ledgers, but they shaped the way the numbers came to be. As evening approaches in this imagined journey, the day naturally comes to a close. Work does not spill into the night. Papers are tucked away. The road becomes quieter still. Lamps glow softly in windows, offering warmth rather than brightness. The person traveling finds a place to rest, perhaps in a modest room or a simple home. The day's numbers remain incomplete, and that is perfectly acceptable. Tomorrow will offer more time. There is no sense of falling behind. Only the gentle awareness that progress happens in its own way. This slow counting reflects a broader truth about that time. Life itself unfolded without constant measurement. Days were not divided into rigid schedules. Moments were allowed to stretch. Silence was common and welcomed. In such a world, even something as formal as a census could feel calm and human. As you rest with this idea, allow the sense of slowness to deepen. Let the image of long roads and open land soften in your mind. You do not need to hold every detail. It is enough to feel the pace, the steady, reassuring pace of a nation counted slowly. The numbers collected along the way do not hurry forward into the future. They rest where they are, content to exist without urgency. They do not demand analysis or comparison. They simply remain as quiet markers of presence. And as this chapter settles, you are invited to settle too. Let the idea of slowness wrap gently around you. Let the calm of unhurried days ease your thoughts. There is nothing left to do, nowhere left to go. Just as the counting paused at nightfall, your mind can pause now as well. Resting comfortably in the quiet knowledge that time moves gently, and you are free to drift with it into deeper rest. Let your attention rest softly now, as if it were settling onto a quiet surface. There is no effort required, only a gentle awareness, like noticing the steady feeling of the ground beneath your feet. In this calm space, imagine a moment where names are written slowly, carefully, and with intention. In the early days of the United States, writing was an act that invited patience. Ink did not flow without thought. Pens needed to be dipped, hands needed to be steady, and each letter took a small moment of focus. Writing a name was not something done quickly or casually. It was an act of care, even when the task itself was simple. Picture a wooden table, worn smooth by time and use. On it rests a sheet of paper, pale and slightly textured. Nearby sits a small bottle of ink, dark and still, waiting quietly. When the pen touches the page, there is a brief pause, just long enough for the writer to gather their attention. Then, slowly, a name begins to appear. Each letter forms deliberately. Curves are shaped with care. Lines are drawn evenly, without haste. There is no rushing to reach the end of the word. The name unfolds one character at a time, as if it is being gently introduced to the page. When the pen lifts, there is a moment of rest before it returns to continue. These names belong to ordinary people. They are not famous or well known. They do not carry titles or expectations. They are simply names, written to acknowledge a presence, to say quietly, this person was here. That acknowledgement carries a subtle weight, even in its simplicity. As you imagine this process, notice how calm it feels. There is something deeply reassuring about careful writing. It asks the mind to slow down, to stay present. The sound of the pen against the paper is soft and steady, almost rhythmic. It becomes a kind of gentle music, unhurried and soothing. The writer does not rush from one name to the next. Between entries, the pen is cleaned or dipped again. The ink is allowed to settle. These pauses are not wasted time, they are part of the rhythm. They allow the hand to rest, the eyes to soften, the mind to remain calm. Outside, the world continues quietly. Light shifts through a nearby window. Perhaps a breeze moves leaves outside, casting faint, changing shadows across the page. None of this distracts from the task. Instead, it becomes part of the atmosphere, background details that deepen the sense of peace. Each name is written once, carefully, and then left alone. There is no erasing, no rewriting. The ink dries slowly, dark against the pale paper. As it dries, the name becomes fixed, settled into its place. It does not call for attention afterward. It simply remains. There is a quiet respect in this act. Writing a name carefully suggests that even ordinary lives deserve to be noticed gently. There is no judgment in the ink. No interpretation. Just a record, calm and neutral, created with steady hands. As the page fills, it does not feel crowded. Each line has space to breathe. Margins remain wide. The layout is unhurried, as if the page itself understands that clarity and calm go hand in hand. Nothing presses against the edges. Everything sits comfortably where it belongs. You may notice how this careful attention mirrors what your own mind needs now. There is no need to hurry through thoughts. No need to complete anything. You can allow ideas to form slowly, or not at all. Just as the writer pauses between names, you can pause between breaths. In this imagined room, time feels different. It stretches gently, without pulling. Minutes are not counted. The only measure is the slow progress of ink across paper. This pace invites a deeper kind of rest, one that does not depend on stopping entirely, but on moving gently. When a page is complete, it is set aside without ceremony. Another page may be brought forward, or the work may pause until another day. There is no sense of unfinished business. Everything done so far is complete in itself. The names already written do not demand review. They do not need to be revisited or analyzed. They rest quietly, their purpose fulfilled simply by existing. There is peace in that finality, a soft sense that something has been done carefully and can now be left alone. As you sit with this image, allow it to soften further. The table, the paper, the ink, they can fade gently into the background. What remains is the feeling of care, of slowness, of attention given without pressure. Let that feeling settle into you. Imagine your thoughts becoming like those names on the page, appearing briefly, clearly, and then resting. You do not need to follow them. You do not need to hold on to them. They can simply be acknowledged and allowed to remain quietly where they are. As this chapter draws to a close, the pen is placed down. The ink bottle is sealed. The room grows still. Nothing more is required. The careful work is complete for now. And in that same spirit, you are free to rest, letting your mind slow, your body soften, and your awareness drift gently toward sleep, carried by the calm rhythm of names written in careful ink. Let your attention ease outward now, as if it were drifting from a quiet desk into the wider world beyond. There is no need to focus sharply. Simply allow images to form gently, like soft shapes appearing in low light. This is a moment to consider households at rest, places where daily movement has slowed and the night has settled in. In the early United States, homes were often simple, built for shelter and warmth rather than display. Yet within those walls, there was a steady sense of comfort. As evening arrived, households naturally shifted toward rest. Doors were closed gently. Lamps were lit with care. The day released its hold without resistance. Imagine a modest home standing quietly against the landscape. Its windows glow softly, not brightly, as if mindful of the surrounding darkness. Inside, the air is warm and still. Furniture rests where it always has, worn smooth by years of use. Nothing has been moved in haste. Everything remains familiar. In one room, a table sits cleared of the day's work. There is no clutter demanding attention. The surface is calm and open, reflecting the soft light of a nearby lamp. Chairs are pulled in, waiting patiently. The room seems to exhale, as if relieved to be free of activity. Nearby, a hearth or stove radiates gentle warmth. It does not crackle loudly or flare suddenly. Instead, it offers a steady presence, a quiet assurance that the night will be comfortable. The warmth spreads slowly, reaching into corners, settling into walls, and lingering without urgency. People within the household move slowly now. Footsteps are soft. Conversations, if they happen at all, are low and unhurried. There is no need for long discussions or plans. The day has already been lived. What remains is simply to be. You might imagine someone smoothing a blanket, the fabric falling into place with a quiet finality. Another person sits, resting without distraction, hands folded loosely, eyes unfocused. These are not moments filled with thought, but with ease. The mind drifts because it is allowed to. Bedrooms are modest but comforting. Beds are prepared with care, linens arranged not for perfection, but for warmth. The simple act of preparing a place to sleep carries a quiet satisfaction. It signals that the day is complete and that rest is both expected and welcomed. Outside, the world mirrors this stillness. Roads fall silent. Fields rest under open sky. The movement of the day gives way to the steady calm of night. Sounds become fewer and softer, perhaps a distant animal call, or the faint movement of leaves in the breeze. Within these households, time feels suspended. Clocks, if present at all, are not watched closely. There is no pressure to wake early or stay awake longer. Sleep is not something to achieve, it is something to allow. There is a sense of safety in this rest. Doors are secured not out of fear, but out of habit. Windows are closed gently. The home becomes a quiet boundary between the stillness inside and the wider darkness outside. Within those walls, there is nothing to prove and nothing to complete. As you imagine these resting households, notice how your own body responds. Muscles may soften. Breathing may deepen. The idea of a space devoted entirely to rest can be deeply calming. It reminds the mind that rest is natural, not earned. Each household rests in its own way, but all share a common rhythm. The night arrives. Activity fades. Stillness takes its place. This rhythm repeats night after night, steady and reliable. It does not demand attention. It simply continues. The people within these homes do not think of themselves as part of history. They are not aware that their quiet evenings will one day be imagined. They are simply living, resting, and allowing the day to close behind them. This ordinariness is what makes the moment so peaceful. There is no significance placed on these hours. They are not marked or celebrated. They are simply used as they are meant to be, times of rest, of restoration, of gentle pause. As the night deepens, lamps are dimmed or extinguished. Darkness is not resisted. It is welcomed as part of the natural order. Beds receive tired bodies. Thoughts slow. The world narrows to warmth, softness, and stillness. Allow these images to soften now. You do not need to hold on to every detail. The homes, the rooms, the quiet movements, they can blur gently, like shapes seen through closing eyes. What remains is the feeling of rest itself. The sense that it is safe to let go. That the day does not follow you into the night. That nothing remains undone that cannot wait. As this chapter settles into silence, you are invited to join these households in rest. Let your mind become as quiet as those rooms. Let your body feel as supported as those beds. Let the night hold you gently. There is nothing more to imagine. Nothing more to consider. Only the steady, comforting presence of rest, waiting patiently for you to drift into it, just as countless households have done before, quietly, naturally, and without effort. Allow your awareness to widen slightly now, as if you were lifting your gaze from a quiet home to the land that surrounds it. There is no need to focus on details too sharply. Simply let the idea of place form softly, like a landscape emerging through morning mist. This is a time to consider the gentle geography of early communities, where land and life settled into one another without force. In the early United States, communities did not rush to spread outward. They grew slowly, shaped by the land rather than imposed upon it. Homes gathered where water was nearby, where soil felt welcoming, where paths naturally crossed. Nothing was arranged with strict precision. Instead, placement followed comfort, familiarity, and quiet practicality. Imagine a small settlement resting beside a stream. The water moves steadily, never hurried, reflecting the sky as it passes. Nearby, a few homes stand at respectful distances from one another, allowing space for quiet and privacy. There is no sense of crowding. The land offers room to breathe, and the community accepts that gift. Paths wind gently between homes, worn smooth by repeated footsteps rather than carved sharply by tools. These paths do not hurry anyone along. They curve naturally, following the easiest way across the ground. Walking them feels effortless, as if the land itself is guiding each step. Fields stretch outward from the center of the community, their boundaries soft and irregular. Fences, if present, are simple and unobtrusive. They mark space without claiming dominance. Beyond the fields, forests stand quietly, offering shade, shelter, and a sense of continuity. There is a calm balance in this arrangement. Homes, fields, water, and woods exist in quiet agreement. None tries to overwhelm the others. The geography does not demand attention. It simply supports daily life with steady reliability. As you imagine this landscape, notice how gentle it feels. There are no sharp contrasts or sudden changes. Hills rise gradually. Valleys open slowly. The horizon feels wide and forgiving. This kind of land invites the mind to relax, to move at the same unhurried pace. Communities formed where travel felt natural. Near rivers, along well-worn roads, or at places where people naturally paused. These locations were not chosen for speed or efficiency, but for comfort and connection. Being close enough to one another to share resources, yet far enough apart to enjoy quiet. At the heart of each community, there might be a common space, a simple green, a meeting place, or a shared path. These spaces are open and calm, used without ceremony. People pass through them as part of their daily routines, not as destinations, but as gentle transitions between places. The geography of these communities shapes the way life feels within them. Without rigid grids or crowded arrangements, there is less urgency. Movement is smooth and predictable. Each day unfolds along familiar routes, offering reassurance rather than surprise. As evening approaches, the land seems to settle along with its people. Shadows lengthen across fields. Light softens along the edges of trees. The paths become quieter, holding the warmth of the day just a little longer before releasing it to the night. From a distance, the community appears peaceful and complete. There is nothing missing, nothing excessive. Each element is present in just the right amount. This balance creates a sense of ease that reaches beyond the physical landscape and into the way people think and feel. You might imagine standing at the edge of such a place, looking back toward the cluster of homes. There is a gentle sense of belonging, even if you are only a visitor. The land does not exclude. It welcomes quietly, without asking questions or making demands. This gentle geography supports rest as much as work. When the day is done, the land does not continue to press forward. It rests along with its inhabitants. Fields lie still. Water continues its steady movement. Trees hold the night air without sound. As you take in this image, allow your own thoughts to become less structured. Like the paths between homes, they can curve gently rather than moving in straight lines. There is no need to arrive anywhere. You can simply wander. The simplicity of this landscape offers a kind of reassurance. It suggests that life does not need constant adjustment or improvement. Sometimes, it is enough to settle where things feel right and allow time to pass naturally. As this chapter draws to a close, let the image of land and community soften. The fields, the paths, the quiet arrangement of homes can fade gently into the background. What remains is a feeling of balance, of space, of quiet belonging. Carry that feeling with you as you rest. Let your mind become like that gentle geography, open, unhurried, and at ease. There is no edge to reach, no boundary to cross. Only the calm presence of a place that allows you to be exactly where you are, drifting peacefully toward sleep. Let the sense of place remain with you as the light of a new day arrives, quietly and without announcement. There is no sudden beginning here, no sharp dividing line between night and morning. Instead, the day appears gradually, as if it has been waiting patiently for the right moment to be noticed. This is a day observed, not interrupted. In the early United States, mornings did not begin with alarms or schedules pressing forward. Light entered rooms slowly, touching walls and floors with a soft certainty. People woke naturally, guided by the changing brightness rather than by sound. The day did not demand attention, it simply offered itself. Life unfolded in a steady rhythm. Doors opened gently. Footsteps moved across familiar ground. There was a sense that the day was already in progress, and one was simply joining it, not starting it. This perspective made each moment feel less urgent, more complete. As you imagine this, picture someone moving through their morning without hurry. Simple tasks are done with ease, gathering tools, preparing food, stepping outside to greet the air. Nothing interrupts the flow. Each action follows the one before it, naturally and without force. Observers of this day do not stand apart or intrude. They are present without altering the rhythm. When information is gathered, it happens quietly, almost invisibly. A question asked softly. A note made calmly. The day continues, unbroken. There is a respect in this approach. To observe without interruption is to acknowledge that daily life has its own integrity. It does not need to be paused or redirected to be understood. It simply needs to be noticed. Throughout the morning, the land and its people move together. Work happens where it always has, in familiar spaces shaped by habit rather than instruction. Hands move confidently, guided by memory and practice. Conversation, if it occurs, remains light and unhurried. The observer's presence is gentle. There is no sense of authority or urgency. The act of noting details feels like listening rather than questioning. The day offers its information willingly, without being pressed. As midday arrives, the pace remains steady. There is time to pause, to rest briefly, to sit in the shade or inside a cool room. These pauses are not breaks from productivity, they are part of the natural rhythm of the day. Food is simple and nourishing, enjoyed without rush. The act of eating becomes another quiet moment of balance, a time to slow even further before continuing. The day does not accelerate after this pause. It resumes at the same calm pace. You may notice how this uninterrupted flow feels soothing. Without sudden changes or demands, the mind remains at ease. Attention does not need to jump from one thing to another. It can rest comfortably on the present moment. As afternoon light shifts, work gently tapers. Tasks are completed when they feel finished, not when a clock demands it. There is no pressure to fill every moment. Some spaces remain open, unoccupied, free. The observer continues to move quietly, taking note without altering what they see. The act of observing becomes almost meditative, steady, neutral, and calm. There is no need to remember everything. Only enough to acknowledge the day as it is. As evening approaches, the day naturally begins to close. Light softens. Movement slows. The transition is seamless, like a deepening breath. Nothing announces the change. It simply happens. The observer withdraws gently, leaving the day intact. Nothing has been disturbed. Nothing has been changed. The record, if there is one, feels secondary to the experience of having witnessed a day allowed to be itself. As you sit with this idea, allow your own day, whatever it has been, to soften. You do not need to revisit it or evaluate it. You can let it remain as it is, observed but not interrupted. This chapter invites you to rest in that same calm. To allow thoughts to pass without engaging them. To notice sensations without reacting. To be present without effort. The day fades quietly now, just as it began. And in that quiet fading, you are free to follow it into rest, letting the gentle rhythm carry you onward, deeper into stillness, where nothing interrupts and nothing needs to be done. Let the quiet rhythm of the day continue, easing naturally into the work that once filled it. There is no sharp division between rest and effort here, no sense of obligation pressing down. Instead, there is a gentle flow. Occupations without hurry, carried out at a pace that feels steady and kind. In the early United States, work was woven into daily life rather than set apart from it. Occupations were not defined by urgency or output, but by familiarity. People did what needed to be done, not all at once, but gradually, allowing time to move alongside them rather than ahead of them. Imagine a person beginning their work as the light becomes just strong enough to guide the hands. There is no rush to start. Tools are gathered slowly, each one familiar to the touch. Nothing is grabbed in haste. Each movement feels deliberate, calm, and practiced. The work itself unfolds in a measured way. Whether tending to land, shaping wood, preparing goods, or maintaining a home, each task is approached with patience. There is time to pause between actions, to adjust posture, to look out across the land before continuing. These pauses are not distractions, they are part of the rhythm. Hands move with confidence that comes from repetition, not pressure. The body knows what to do, and the mind does not need to push it forward. In this way, work becomes almost soothing, a series of gentle motions that require attention without strain. Sound accompanies these occupations, but softly. The steady scrape of a tool, the quiet step across a floor, the low murmur of movement. These sounds do not compete with one another. They blend into a calm background, reinforcing the sense that everything is proceeding as it should. There is no expectation that work must be completed quickly. Tasks are finished when they are finished. If something takes longer, that is accepted without frustration. Time is not an opponent here. It is a companion, moving alongside each action. As you imagine these occupations, notice how different this feels from hurried effort. There is no tightness in the shoulders, no shallow breathing. The body remains relaxed even while engaged. The mind stays focused without becoming tense. Work is often done in familiar places, spaces shaped over years to support these tasks. A bench worn smooth by use. A path traveled so often it feels natural underfoot. These environments hold the memory of calm effort, reinforcing the sense that nothing needs to change. People may work alone or alongside others, but there is little need for constant communication. Silence is comfortable. When words are spoken, they are few and practical, delivered without urgency. There is no pressure to fill the space with sound. As the day progresses, effort rises and falls naturally. When the body needs rest, it is given. A moment of stillness is allowed without guilt. Work resumes easily afterward, picking up where it left off without complication. This balance between effort and rest creates a sense of ease that extends beyond the task itself. The mind does not carry unfinished work as a burden. It understands that everything has its place and time. As afternoon light softens, occupations gently wind down. There is no abrupt stopping point. Tools are set aside gradually. Spaces are left orderly, ready for the next day without needing immediate attention. The completion of work does not bring relief from stress, because stress was never present. Instead, it brings a quiet satisfaction, a sense of having participated in the day without being consumed by it. As you sit with this image, allow your own ideas of work and effort to soften. You do not need to hurry through thoughts or plans. Like these occupations, your mind can move slowly, attending only to what feels gentle and manageable. Let the idea of work without hurry settle into you. Imagine each task in your own life unfolding at this same calm pace. Nothing rushed. Nothing forced. Just steady movement followed by rest. As this chapter draws to a close, the tools are put away. The spaces fall quiet. The day releases its hold. What remains is a feeling of balance. Of having done enough without needing to do more. Carry that feeling with you now. Let your thoughts slow. Let your breathing deepen. There is no work left to complete in this moment. Only the gentle permission to rest, knowing that life continues best when it is allowed to move without hurry, just as it once did, quietly, patiently, and at ease. Let the sense of calm effort fade gently into a wider view, as if your perspective were lifting slowly above the quiet routines of the day. From here, you can observe not just individuals, but an entire population moving together, unhurried, steady, and at a pace shaped by human needs rather than demands. This is a population moving at a human pace. In the early United States, movement itself was measured by the body. Distance was understood through steps taken, through time spent walking or riding, through the feeling of effort followed by rest. People moved when they needed to, and they stopped when they were tired. There was no expectation that movement should be constant or fast. Communities rose and settled in rhythm with this pace. People traveled between homes, fields, and gathering places without haste. Each journey had space within it, space to notice the land, the weather, the passing of time. Movement was not a race. It was simply part of living. Imagine a morning where people step out into the day without rushing. Footsteps are steady. Paths are familiar. There is no crowding, no jostling. Each person has enough space to move comfortably, to pause if needed, to continue when ready. This pace allows the body to remain relaxed even while in motion. Breathing stays deep and even. Muscles work without strain. The mind stays present, not pulled ahead by worry or behind by fatigue. Movement becomes a gentle form of balance. As the day unfolds, the population spreads across the land in predictable patterns. Some remain close to home. Others travel short distances to tend to responsibilities. These movements overlap without conflict. Everyone moves within a shared understanding of space and time. There is an unspoken coordination in this human pace. People naturally avoid rushing past one another. They adjust their speed when crossing paths. There is patience built into every interaction, even when words are not exchanged. You might imagine standing quietly at a crossroads, watching this gentle movement. There is no rush of traffic, no noise of urgency. Just the steady passing of individuals, each absorbed in their own purpose, yet moving in harmony with the larger flow. This pace shapes how days are experienced. Without constant motion, moments are allowed to settle. The mind has time to process what it sees and feels. Attention can rest on simple details, the warmth of sunlight, the texture of ground beneath feet, the sound of distant activity. As afternoon approaches, movement naturally slows. Effort tapers. People return gradually toward places of rest. There is no sudden shift, no signal to stop. The pace eases as the day eases, mirroring the light's gradual change. This shared rhythm creates a sense of stability. When everyone moves at a human pace, there is less friction, less tension. Life feels predictable in a comforting way. Not monotonous, but steady. As you imagine this, allow your own sense of time to soften. You do not need to move quickly through thoughts or plans. You can allow them to arise and pass at their own speed, without pressure. The idea of a population moving together at this pace offers reassurance. It suggests that life does not need to accelerate to be meaningful. That progress can be measured in comfort and balance rather than speed. As evening nears, movement becomes minimal. Paths empty. Homes gather their inhabitants. The land rests as people rest. The pace slows to its quietest point, preparing naturally for night. From this wider view, everything feels connected. Individual movements form a larger pattern, one of calm continuity. There is no urgency driving it forward. Only the steady passage of time, accepted without resistance. As this chapter settles, let the image of gentle movement fade into stillness. You are not required to keep up or move ahead. You are free to pause completely. Allow your body to rest. Allow your mind to slow. The human pace invites you to do just that. To move gently, to stop when needed, and to drift naturally towards sleep, carried by the same calm rhythm that once guided an entire population, step by step, into the quiet of night. As the day gradually releases its hold, evening arrives without ceremony. It does not announce itself loudly or insist on attention. Instead, it settles in gently, like a familiar presence returning at the same time it always has. These are the evenings after the counting, when the work of observation has ended and the quiet of rest takes its place. In the early United States, evenings followed a dependable rhythm. When the light softened and stretched across the land, activity naturally slowed. Papers were gathered and set aside. Pens were cleaned and placed carefully away. There was no need to review what had been written or rush to finish what remained. Tomorrow would come, and with it, more time. Imagine the close of such a day. The road grows quieter as footsteps turn toward home. The air cools slightly, bringing relief and calm. The sky shifts through gentle shades, offering a peaceful transition rather than a sudden change. Nothing is hurried. Nothing feels incomplete. Inside homes, lamps are lit one by one. Their glow is warm and steady, not bright enough to command attention, but enough to offer comfort. Shadows gather softly in corners, undisturbed. The rooms seem to relax, as if they too are aware that the day's work is finished. These evenings are not filled with activity. They are shaped by stillness. People sit without needing to occupy every moment. Hands rest. Bodies settle into familiar chairs. There is a quiet satisfaction in knowing that the day has been acknowledged fully and can now be released. Conversation, if it happens, is gentle and unforced. Voices remain low, as though respecting the calm that has arrived. Words are few and meaningful, or sometimes unnecessary altogether. Silence feels complete on its own. The counting that took place earlier does not linger in thought. Numbers do not echo or demand review. They remain where they were written, resting quietly on the page. There is no need to revisit them now. Evening has its own purpose, separate from the tasks of the day. Outside, the land mirrors this sense of rest. Fields darken gradually. Paths disappear into shadow. The movement of the day fades until only the most subtle sounds remain, a distant breeze, the quiet settling of night. These evenings offer a gentle boundary between effort and sleep. They are not meant to be productive or efficient. They exist simply to ease the transition, allowing minds and bodies to slow together. You might imagine someone sitting near a window, watching the last light fade from the sky. There is no urgency to close the curtains or turn away. The moment is allowed to unfold fully, without interruption. As darkness deepens, the world becomes smaller and more contained. Attention naturally turns inward. Thoughts become less specific, less demanding. The mind begins to drift, not because it is tired, but because it is no longer needed. Evenings after the counting carry a quiet sense of completion. The day has been seen. Lives have been acknowledged. Nothing more is required. This feeling creates space for rest to arrive naturally, without effort. As you rest with this image, allow your own evening, whatever it looks like, to soften. You do not need to revisit the details of your day. You can let them remain as they are, already complete. These quiet hours are not a pause between important moments. They are important in themselves. They offer restoration simply by existing. By allowing the mind to loosen its hold on structure and expectation. As lamps dim and rooms grow darker, the final movements of the evening occur slowly. Blankets are adjusted. Doors are secured gently. Beds are prepared with care, not haste. Each action signals that it is safe to let go. The world outside recedes further, leaving only the immediate comfort of rest. The counting, the writing, the movement of the day, all of it fades into the background, where it belongs. As this chapter settles into silence, you are invited to do the same. Let the evening hold you gently. Let the quiet after the counting guide you away from thought and toward rest. There is nothing left to consider. Nothing left to complete. Only the steady calm of night, waiting patiently as you drift deeper into sleep, carried by the same gentle rhythm that once ended so many days, quietly, naturally, and without demand. Allow the evening quiet to continue, settling now into a place where the day's work is stored and left undisturbed. This is a calm interior space, one that exists not for activity, but for safekeeping. Here, records rest on wooden shelves, waiting without expectation. In the early United States, storage was simple and thoughtful. Documents were not hidden away or locked behind layers of complexity. They were placed where they could be found again if needed, but were otherwise allowed to remain at rest. Wooden shelves, built sturdy and plain, held the weight of paper without strain. Imagine a small room with walls lined in wood. The scent of aged timber mixes gently with the faint, familiar smell of ink and paper. Light enters through a narrow window, soft and indirect, never harsh. Dust settles slowly in the air, undisturbed by movement. On the shelves sit bundles of records, tied neatly or stacked carefully. Each one represents a quiet effort completed earlier in the day. Names, numbers, places, captured without urgency and now released from attention. The shelves do not judge their contents. They simply support them. The wood itself feels reassuring. It has been shaped by hand, sanded smooth, built to last. It does not rush or flex. It holds steady, offering a sense of permanence that allows the mind to relax. Knowing that things are safely stored brings a subtle relief. In this room, nothing asks to be done. There are no tools laid out, no papers spread open. Everything is closed, contained, and finished for now. The records do not need to be reviewed. They are complete in their stillness. As you imagine this space, notice how quiet it feels. Even sound seems to rest here. Footsteps would echo softly, if there were any, but the room remains empty. The shelves stand in patient silence, content with their role. Time moves differently in this place. Days pass, but the records remain unchanged. They are not affected by the passing hours. This stability offers comfort. It suggests that not everything needs constant attention to remain valid. You might imagine standing in this room for a moment, simply observing. There is no pressure to understand the contents of the records. Their meaning is secondary to their presence. What matters is that they exist, safely held, no longer requiring effort. This sense of containment mirrors what the mind seeks at the end of the day. Thoughts, like records, can be placed gently aside. They do not need to be resolved now. They can rest on their own shelves, waiting quietly. The wooden shelves offer a visual metaphor for rest. Each shelf holds what it needs to, without strain or overflow. Nothing is stacked precariously. Everything has its place. This order is not rigid or forced, it is calm and natural. As the light in the room shifts, shadows deepen between the shelves. The records remain visible but subdued. They do not stand out or demand focus. They blend into the quiet, becoming part of the background. The room itself seems to breathe slowly. Air moves gently, carrying no urgency. The walls absorb sound and motion, creating a sense of enclosure and safety. This is a place designed for rest, even if unintentionally. As you sit with this image, allow your own thoughts to find similar shelves. Imagine placing each one carefully away, knowing it will be there if needed, but not required now. This act of mental storage can feel deeply soothing. There is no loss in letting thoughts rest. Just as the records remain intact, your ideas and concerns will remain. They do not disappear when set aside. They simply wait, without pressing forward. As the evening deepens further, the room grows darker. The shelves fade into shadow, but their presence remains. There is no need for light here now. Everything that needs to be seen has already been seen. This chapter closes with that image of quiet containment. Records resting on wooden shelves. Work completed. Attention released. And in that same spirit, you are invited to rest. Let your mind settle into its own quiet space. Let the day's details find their shelves. Allow the night to hold them for you. There is nothing left to organize or remember. Only the gentle assurance that everything is safely stored, and you are free to drift into sleep, supported by the calm, steady presence of rest. Stay with the quiet feeling that has been gathering, the sense that nothing needs to move or change. From that stillness, allow a gentle pattern to emerge, one that does not surprise or demand attention. This is the comfort of repetition, a rhythm that soothes simply by continuing. In the early United States, repetition was woven into daily life. Days followed familiar shapes. Tasks returned again and again, not as burdens, but as assurances. Knowing what would happen next brought ease rather than boredom. There was comfort in predictability. Imagine the simple repetition of opening a door each morning, of walking the same path, of preparing food in the same way. These actions did not lose meaning by being repeated. Instead, they became smoother, quieter, and more reliable with time. The act of counting, too, was repetitive. Names followed names. Numbers followed numbers. The structure remained the same from one page to the next. This repetition did not diminish attention, it softened it. The mind could relax into the pattern, knowing what was coming. As you imagine pages filled with similar entries, notice how calming that feels. The eye moves easily from line to line. There are no surprises. Each detail fits neatly into its place. The repetition creates a visual rhythm, like evenly spaced footsteps on a quiet road. This rhythm extends beyond paper. It appears in the way communities functioned. Evenings arrived at the same time each day. Lamps were lit in the same order. Meals were prepared with familiar motions. These repetitions signaled safety and stability. Repetition allows the mind to rest because it removes the need for constant decision-making. When something is familiar, it requires less effort to engage with it. Attention becomes gentle rather than sharp. This softness invites calm. You might notice how repetition feels in your own body. The steady rhythm of breathing. The consistent rise and fall of the chest. These patterns are deeply comforting because they are reliable. They do not surprise. They simply continue. In early communities, repetition shaped relationships as well. People saw one another regularly, in the same places, under similar circumstances. These repeated encounters built quiet familiarity. There was no need for constant explanation or introduction. The land itself participated in this repetition. Seasons followed one another in an expected order. Light changed predictably. Even the sounds of the environment repeated: birds at dawn, stillness at night. This consistency grounded daily life. As you sit with this idea, allow your thoughts to become repetitive in a gentle way. You might notice the same image returning, or the same feeling. There is no need to push it away. Repetition here is a sign of settling, not stagnation. The comfort of repetition lies in its ability to hold attention lightly. It does not require focus. It invites drift. This is why familiar stories, familiar sounds, and familiar rhythms can ease the mind toward sleep. In the context of record keeping, repetition created trust. Seeing similar entries again and again reassured the writer that the process was working as it should. There was no need to question or adjust. The pattern held steady. As evening deepened, repetition continued to guide the transition toward rest. The same gestures marked the end of the day: closing doors, dimming lights, preparing beds. These actions repeated night after night, forming a gentle pathway into sleep. You may notice how repetition in this moment feels comforting rather than dull. The steady tone of these words. The recurring themes of quiet, rest, and stillness. Each return reinforces calm. There is no requirement to remember everything that has been said. Repetition allows you to let go of details, trusting that the overall feeling will remain. Like a familiar melody, it can play in the background without demanding attention. As this chapter unfolds, repetition becomes less distinct. Patterns blur softly. One moment flows into the next without clear boundaries. This blending is part of the comfort. It removes sharp edges and invites rest. Imagine the records on their shelves, each similar in form, each resting peacefully. Their sameness does not make them insignificant. It makes them stable. Their presence is quiet and dependable. As you allow this sense of repetition to settle, notice how your mind becomes less active. Thoughts may circle gently, or fade altogether. There is no need to interrupt this process. It is natural and supportive. As this chapter comes to a close, repetition continues, but quietly, in the background. The rhythm remains, even as attention drifts away from it. Let that rhythm carry you now. Like a familiar path walked many times, it leads naturally toward rest. You do not need to watch your steps. The way is known. And as you follow it, gently and without effort, you can allow yourself to drift deeper into sleep, supported by the comforting repetition of calm, familiar moments, unfolding just as they always have, steady, reassuring, and at ease. Rest now in the quiet rhythm that has been carrying you forward. From within that calm, allow a gentle idea to take shape, one that asks nothing more than acknowledgement. This is a moment to consider lives not explained, only noted, and the peace that comes from such simplicity. In the early United States, many lives passed without detailed records or lasting commentary. People lived, worked, rested, and moved on, leaving behind only the most modest traces. A name. A number. A place. These small marks were not meant to tell a full story. They were simply signs of presence. There is something deeply calming about this kind of acknowledgement. To be noted without being analyzed. To be seen without being interpreted. Lives recorded in this way were allowed to remain their own, free from explanation or judgment. Imagine a page filled with simple entries. Each line contains just enough information to say, quietly, someone was here. There are no descriptions of personality, no accounts of struggle or success. The page does not ask for more. It does not require context. This restraint creates space. Space for the mind to rest, for the imagination to soften. Without details to follow, attention does not need to engage deeply. It can hover gently, appreciating the simplicity without becoming involved. These records did not try to define people. They did not attempt to capture the fullness of a life. They acknowledged limits, accepting that most of what matters cannot be written down. This acceptance brings a quiet humility that feels comforting. As you imagine these lives being noted, notice how non-intrusive the process feels. No one is asked to explain themselves. No one is required to justify their existence. Presence alone is enough. There is relief in this idea. In a world that often asks for explanations, the thought of simply being noted can feel deeply restful. It removes pressure. It allows identity to remain private and intact. The people whose lives were noted likely did not think of themselves as being recorded for history. They lived their days without awareness of future readers or listeners. This unself-conscious existence adds to the calm of the image. Their routines unfolded quietly. Morning followed night. Work followed rest. Relationships formed and changed without being documented. The richness of life remained off the page, untouched by the record. As you sit with this, allow your own need for explanation to soften. You do not need to understand everything about yourself or your day. You can simply acknowledge that you were here, that you moved through the day, and that is enough. The act of noting without explaining creates a boundary. It keeps the record clean and calm. It prevents overthinking. It invites acceptance rather than analysis. In the quiet of record-keeping rooms, these entries rested without comment. They were not revisited frequently. They were not debated. They remained exactly as they were written, unchanged and unchallenged. This stillness is soothing. It suggests that once something has been acknowledged, it can be left alone. There is no need to revisit or reinterpret it repeatedly. As the evening deepens, the idea of lives simply noted blends into the broader quiet of night. The details of the day fade, leaving only a sense of having been present. You might imagine these pages resting alongside others, each similar in form, each holding quiet acknowledgement. Together, they create a gentle tapestry of presence without narrative. This lack of explanation does not diminish the value of these lives. Instead, it preserves their dignity. It allows them to exist without being reduced to stories or summaries. As you rest with this thought, notice how your own mind responds. Without the need to explain or resolve, thoughts may loosen their grip. The mind can settle into a softer state, free from evaluation. This chapter invites you to practice the same gentleness with yourself. You do not need to explain your thoughts or feelings right now. You can simply notice them, acknowledge their presence, and allow them to rest. As the words slow and spaces between thoughts widen, you may feel a sense of quiet acceptance. A feeling that it is safe to let things remain undefined. And as this chapter comes to a close, that feeling lingers. Lives not explained, only noted. Thoughts not pursued, only acknowledged. The day not analyzed, only completed. Let that simplicity carry you forward now. Allow your awareness to drift without direction. There is nothing to solve, nothing to interpret. Only the calm assurance that being present is enough, and with that assurance, you can rest deeply, letting sleep arrive naturally, quietly, and without effort. Remain in the gentle quiet that has been forming, and allow it to stretch even further. Here, there is no clear beginning or end, only a soft continuity. This is time passing without announcement, moving steadily and without interruption, just as it always has. In the early United States, time did not demand attention. It did not arrive with alarms or reminders. Instead, it revealed itself through subtle changes, light shifting across a room, shadows lengthening, the air cooling slightly as evening approached. These changes were noticed only if one happened to be paying attention, and even then, they required no response. Days flowed into one another with a sense of sameness that felt reassuring rather than dull. Morning followed night. Night followed day. The transitions were smooth, almost seamless. Time did not hurry anyone along. It simply continued. Imagine a quiet interior space where nothing marks the passing of hours except the slow movement of light. A sunbeam rests on the floor, gradually sliding across the wood. No one watches it closely. Its movement is not measured. It moves because time moves. Outside, the land changes just as gently. Leaves shift in color over weeks rather than moments. Fields transform slowly, without drama. Even the weather follows familiar patterns, easing from one state to another. This unannounced passage of time creates a calm atmosphere. Without constant markers, the mind does not feel pressured to keep track. Attention can rest in the present without worrying about what comes next. As you imagine this, notice how different it feels from time that is counted and measured. There is no sense of falling behind or rushing ahead. There is only the quiet assurance that time is moving, and that movement is enough. In the context of record keeping, time passing without announcement meant that entries were made when the moment allowed. There was no strict schedule forcing completion. Work resumed when light and energy returned. This flexibility softened the entire process. You might imagine someone pausing mid-task, not because something has gone wrong, but because the day has simply shifted. Light fades. Evening arrives. The task can wait. Time has spoken without words. This acceptance of time's quiet movement allowed life to unfold with less tension. Plans adjusted naturally. Expectations remained flexible. There was room for rest, for delay, for change. As you sit with this idea, allow your own sense of time to loosen. You do not need to track minutes or anticipate tomorrow. You can rest in the present moment, knowing that time will continue on its own. Time passing without announcement also means that moments of rest arrive gently. Sleep does not need to be forced. It comes when the body is ready, guided by subtle cues rather than commands. The night deepens slowly. Darkness settles without signaling its arrival. Lamps dim. Sounds fade. The world narrows quietly, without closing in. This gradual shift is deeply soothing. It allows the mind to follow without resistance. There is no moment when one must suddenly let go. Instead, letting go happens little by little. As this chapter unfolds, words themselves may begin to feel less distinct. Sentences blur gently. The spaces between them grow more noticeable. This is part of time passing quietly, detail dissolving into feeling. You might notice your breathing aligning with this rhythm. Slow. Even. Unforced. Each breath arrives and leaves without announcement, just as time does. There is a sense of trust in this process. Trust that nothing important will be missed. Trust that rest will arrive when needed. Trust that time does not require constant attention to function. In early communities, this trust allowed people to live without anxiety about the future. They planned, but they did not obsess. They worked, but they did not rush. Time supported them rather than challenged them. As you rest with this image, allow your thoughts to drift further apart. You do not need to follow each one. You can let them pass quietly, like moments passing without announcement. The night continues to deepen. The world becomes still. Time continues its gentle movement, unnoticed and unremarked. As this chapter draws to a close, there is nothing to signal its end. It fades naturally, just as time does. And in that fading, you are free to drift into sleep, without effort, without decision, without announcement, carried forward by the quiet, steady passage of time, moving gently onward, just as it always has. Now allow the gentle movement of time to soften even further, until it becomes almost imperceptible. Nothing is arriving. Nothing is leaving. This is a moment meant only for settling. You are the listener here, and this is the quiet stillness that welcomes you. There is no need to picture anything new. The images that came before can remain faint, like distant memories that no longer ask to be recalled. What matters now is the feeling that remains when all effort fades, the feeling of being held gently by the night. In this stillness, your body begins to notice its own weight. Not as heaviness, but as comfort. You may feel the surface beneath you supporting you fully, without adjustment or demand. Muscles that were holding on begin to release, one small place at a time. Breathing finds its own rhythm. You do not need to guide it. Each breath arrives quietly and leaves just as quietly, like a wave that touches the shore and retreats without sound. The spaces between breaths grow longer, softer, more peaceful. As the listener settles, attention drifts inward without effort. Thoughts no longer form complete shapes. They appear briefly, then dissolve, like mist thinning in early light. There is no reason to follow them. They pass on their own. The world beyond you feels distant now, not because it has gone away, but because it no longer needs your attention. Sounds, if there are any, blend into the background. They do not interrupt. They simply exist, steady and neutral. This stillness is not emptiness. It is fullness without activity. A gentle presence that does not require movement or thought. It feels safe because nothing is expected of you here. As you rest in this state, the idea of time becomes less clear. Minutes and hours lose their shape. There is only now, stretching softly without edge or boundary. This is where rest deepens naturally. You may notice subtle sensations, warmth, calm, a sense of ease spreading through your body. These sensations do not need attention. They will continue whether you notice them or not. The listener's role is simply to remain. Not to listen actively, not to remember or understand. Just to be present in this quiet, allowing stillness to do its work. In early nights long ago, this same stillness arrived without effort. People did not prepare extensively for it. They allowed it. Darkness deepened, activity faded, and rest followed naturally. You are part of that same rhythm now. Nothing has changed. The night still knows how to guide you into rest without instruction. As this chapter continues, words themselves become softer. Their meaning matters less than their tone. They are here only to support the stillness, not to fill it. Allow your awareness to narrow gently, like a lens closing. External details fade. Internal chatter quiets. What remains is a calm center, steady and quiet. If thoughts return briefly, that is perfectly fine. You do not need to push them away. Simply allow them to settle, like leaves drifting to the ground. The listener settling into stillness does not require effort. It happens naturally, as the body and mind recognize that it is safe to rest. As this chapter nears its end, there is no need to mark the moment. Stillness does not begin or end sharply. It deepens gradually, quietly. And as it deepens, sleep draws closer, not as something to achieve, but as something already arriving, gently and without sound. You are free now to drift. To let go of listening. To rest completely in the quiet that surrounds you and lives within you. Nothing more will be asked. Nothing more needs to happen. Just stillness, holding you calmly, as you slip softly into sleep. Allow the stillness to remain, unbroken and gentle, as if the world itself has settled into a long, comfortable pause. There is nothing new to imagine now, only a quiet place to rest. This is resting among the quiet records, where everything that needed to be noticed has already been noticed, and nothing asks for more. Picture a calm, dimly lit room, much like the ones you have already visited in thought. Wooden shelves line the walls, steady and familiar. Upon them rest books, ledgers, and bundles of paper, records that once required attention, now content in silence. They do not call out. They do not remind. They simply rest. The air in this room is still, carrying a faint sense of age and calm. It feels protected here, as though time itself has slowed out of respect for the quiet. Light is low and warm, barely shifting. Shadows remain soft and unmoving. These records hold no urgency. Each one has completed its purpose. Names have been written. Numbers placed. Moments acknowledged. Now they exist only as quiet companions, sharing the space without demanding recognition. As you imagine resting here, notice how safe the stillness feels. There is no pressure to understand what the records contain. Their details are unimportant now. What matters is that they are complete and at peace. This room does not change. It does not respond to the passing of hours. It simply holds what it holds. That stability creates a deep sense of comfort, allowing the mind to loosen completely. You may imagine yourself sitting or lying comfortably within this space, fully supported. There is no need to move or adjust. Your body finds ease naturally, as if it has always belonged here. Thoughts, if they arise, are like the records themselves, present but quiet. You do not need to open them or read them. They can remain closed, stored safely, waiting without urgency. Breathing continues slowly and evenly. Each breath feels complete on its own. There is no need to anticipate the next one. The body knows what to do. The quiet records around you seem to absorb any remaining activity. Sound fades further. Sensation softens. Awareness becomes gentle and unfocused. This is not a place of forgetting, but of rest. Everything that matters has been acknowledged already. Nothing is being lost. It is simply being held quietly. In this calm, the distinction between past and present becomes less clear. Time stretches and smooths. The idea of tomorrow feels distant and unimportant. Only rest remains. You might sense the presence of countless quiet moments stored here, not as stories, but as peaceful impressions. They do not overwhelm. They reassure. They suggest continuity without demand. As the night deepens further, even this imagined room begins to fade. The shelves, the records, the soft light, all dissolve gently into darkness. Nothing disappears abruptly. It all blends together in a smooth, comforting way. What remains is the feeling of being held within stillness. Safe. Supported. Complete. There is no need to stay awake any longer. Listening is no longer required. The story has done its work by leading you here, to this place of quiet rest. Allow your awareness to drift now, free from words, free from images. Let the quiet records keep watch while you sleep. Everything is settled. Everything is at rest. And as you rest among the quiet records, sleep arrives fully, deep, calm, and untroubled. Carrying you gently into the night, where nothing moves, nothing asks, and everything is peacefully still.